The year was 2347, and the Earth no longer resembled the blue-green orb humanity had once called home. The skies were a perpetual haze of metallic silver, streaked with veins of neon green, the result of centuries of industrialization and terraforming, experiments gone awry. What remained of the natural world existed only in glass-domed sanctuaries scattered across the planet's surface, relics of an era when humans still believed they could control nature. But this wasn't the story of failure. This was the story of triumph, a tale whispered among the stars by those who bore witness to humanity's improbable evolution. Dr. Ilara Voss stood on the observation deck of the orbital station Erebus, her gloved hands pressed against the reinforced glass as she gazed down at the transformed Earth below. Her reflection stared back at her, sharp cheekbones, piercing gray eyes, and hair cropped short like most scientists aboard the station. She exhaled slowly, fogging up the pain for a brief moment before it cleared again. "They were wrong," she murmured to herself, though her voice carried enough conviction to fill the empty room. Every single one of them. Ilara wasn't referring to her colleagues or even the politicians who had long since abandoned Earth for colonies on Mars and Europa. No, she meant the environmentalists, the doomsayers, the prophets of ecological collapse. For decades, they had warned that humanity's relentless exploitation of resources would lead to extinction. They claimed the ecosystem was too fragile to endure mankind's insatiable hunger for progress. And perhaps in some ways, they had been right. The oceans had boiled away under the heat of runaway greenhouse gases. Forests had burned to ash, leaving behind barren wastelands. Entire species had vanished into oblivion, their DNA preserved only in digital archives. Yet despite all of this, or perhaps because of it, humanity had not perished. Instead, it had evolved. It began with Project Genesis, a desperate attempt to reverse engineer the damage done to the planet. Scientists had introduced genetically modified organisms, GMOs, designed to thrive in hostile environments. These organisms weren't plants or animals as traditionally understood. They were hybrid creations, part machine, part biology, capable of adapting to extreme conditions. Some were engineered to absorb carbon dioxide and release oxygen, while others broke down toxic waste into harmless compounds. At first, the results seemed promising. Dead zones sprang back to life, albeit in forms unrecognizable to anyone familiar with pre-industrial Earth. But then something unexpected happened. The GMOs began to interact with each other in ways no one could have predicted. They didn't just adapt, they mutated. Entire ecosystems emerged overnight, thriving in the ruins of what had come before. And so, humanity faced a new challenge: how to survive alongside these rapidly evolving organisms. Ilara remembered the day she first encountered one of the mutations. It had been during a routine survey mission to the equatorial region, where temperatures soared above 60 degrees Celsius. Clad in her exosuit, she had ventured into the heart of what used to be the Amazon rainforest, now a labyrinth of crystalline structures and pulsating fungal growths. She found it near a pool of iridescent liquid, its form shifting like smoke caught in a breeze. At first glance, it appeared to be nothing more than a cluster of tendrils writhing in the air. But as she approached, the tendrils coalesced into a humanoid shape, its features indistinct, yet eerily familiar. "Hello?" Ilara said, her voice trembling despite herself. "Can you understand me?" The creature tilted its head, studying her with eyes that glowed faintly blue. Then, without warning, it lunged forward, wrapping its tendrils around her suit. Alarms blared as sensors detected a breach in her protective layer. But instead of feeling pain, Ilara felt warmth. A strange sensation spread through her body, as if every cell was being rewritten. When the tendrils finally released her, she collapsed to the ground, gasping for breath. That's when she noticed the changes. Her skin shimmered faintly, reflecting light in unnatural ways. Her muscles felt stronger, her thoughts clearer. She realized with a mixture of awe and terror that the mutation had altered her on a fundamental level. Back on the Erebus, Ilara became both subject and scientist, conducting experiments on herself to understand the extent of her transformation. She discovered that her newfound abilities were linked to nanotechnology embedded within her cells, technology derived from the very organisms that had attacked her. Somehow, these organisms had recognized her as a potential host and integrated themselves into her biology. Word of her discovery spread quickly, and soon others volunteered to undergo similar transformations. Entire teams descended to Earth's surface, seeking out the mutations that now dominated the landscape. Each encounter yielded new insights, new adaptations. Some gained heightened senses, others developed resistance to radiation or extreme temperatures. Over time, humanity ceased to be a singular species and became something far greater, a collective of diverse, interconnected beings united by their shared evolution. Yet not everyone welcomed this change. The leaders of the off-world colonies viewed the mutations with suspicion, fearing that the transformed humans posed a threat to their carefully controlled societies. They branded them abominations and issued edicts forbidding any contact with Earth. To them, the planet was a lost cause, a graveyard unfit for habitation. But Ilara knew better. She had seen firsthand the resilience of life, not just human life, but all life. The mutations weren't destroying Earth, they were reshaping it, creating a new equilibrium that defied conventional understanding. And humanity, rather than resisting this process, had embraced it. Years passed, and the divide between Earth and the colonies grew wider. While the colonists clung to their outdated notions of purity and order, those who remained on Earth continued to evolve. Cities made of organic material rose from the ashes of the old world, their architecture alive and responsive to the needs of their inhabitants. Communication occurred not through devices, but through neural networks woven into the fabric of existence itself. Ilara often wondered if the colonists would ever return, if they would see the beauty in what Earth had become. She doubted it. Their fear of change blinded them to the possibilities that lay beyond their rigid ideologies. Standing once more on the observation deck of the Erebus, Ilara looked down at the vibrant tapestry of colors spreading across the planet below. It was chaotic, unpredictable, and utterly breathtaking. Where others saw destruction, she saw creation. Where others saw despair, she saw hope. "They were wrong," she whispered again, a smile tugging at the corners of her lips. "Earth isn't fragile, neither are we." And with that, she turned away from the window, ready to embrace whatever the future might hold. For humanity, there was no going back, only forward, into the unknown, into the infinite potential of what it meant to be alive.